Hey guys, here's the introduction video to the all-new HD2. Now, ever since we released the HD1, it's been very popular, and the number one question we keep getting asked is, can we add functional training arms to it? And because of the way that machine is built with the lat pull-down towers and stuff like that, it's not really going to work well with functional training arms. So instead of trying to add these to HD1 and ruin a lot of the best things about HD1, we decided to make a second version that would accommodate functional training arms, and then we can kind of compare for you guys and explain which one would be better in different use cases, because that's really the thing, is the HD1 is going to be better for certain people, and then for certain things the HD2 is going to be better. So I know we're going to get a ton of questions comparing them, so when I release this video, I'm also going to try to do one at the same time comparing them, or shortly after I'll have a video up that's going to just strictly compare HD1 and HD2, and then I'll recommend in that video which one would be better for certain use cases. So in this video, I'm going to put together a bunch of clips going over this, everything it comes with, all the new stuff, and yeah, stick around, we'll get into it. Okay, really quickly before I get into the gym, if this is your first time seeing one of our videos and you don't really know us as a company, it's always our goal that when we develop a home gym, we aim to be the absolute best available option on the market for its price point. So it's very hard to compare us to a lot of competitors, and when you do, I think you'll find us coming out on top. But I always like to throw this out there as a challenge to everybody. So, if you find a better option, that includes functional training arms on a 3x3 rack with 11 gauge, and you find a better deal, put it in the comments below so we can all compare. I put that challenge out to HD1, and 3 million views, not one person was able to beat it. But we'll see. I think we crushed it here too, but if you guys find anything better, put it in the comments below. Okay, so we're going to start with dimensions and framing. So this is 7.5 feet tall. And then for the depth on the machine, from the back foot to the front of the foot, that's 53 inches. And then for the width on the back, from outside plate horn to outside plate horn, that's 73 inches. And then to give you guys an idea on the wingspan, the way that I have it right now, that's 72 inches. But if you guys max them out, the widest point would be 81. So these guys can do an 81-inch reach that way. And then all the framing on the machine, this is all 11 gauge everywhere. 3x3 uprights with 1-inch holes, and that's now pretty much the gold standard. So if you're going to want to get attachments from other brands down the road, or just have universal fitment for things that you might want down the road, that's the specs you're going to want to look for on the uprights. Okay, so for your low row station, we kind of went in a different direction than you'd typically see. Generally, the row is never ideal if you're doing it off functional training arms, because they stick out so far and they're a lighter cable ratio. So in order to get a heavy row, you'd have to set up something in the middle to stabilize you, connect both together. So it's either a lot of work to set up a good row, or it's just never ideal off of one side. So instead of doing all that, we ran a completely separate cable into the extension foot. So now you have a dedicated 1-to-1 cable ratio, a heavy row built in whenever you need it. And then this foot plate can come on and off whenever you're not using it. And then it has two different angles, so you can either sit on the floor and row, or you can sit on a bench, and I'll show you what both those angles look like right now. Okay, so for the low row, I like to sit on a balance pad, but you can also just sit on the floor. We have these on the website in black. So this is your low row setup on a 1-to-1 cable. So there's 100 pounds. 100 pounds is 100 pounds. And then I'll show you what it looks like on a bench. So on the bench, it's going to be a little bit more of a high row, so it'll hit you more towards your traps and upper back. So those are the two different angles, and then when you're not using it, you can just take this guy off. Okay, so quickly I wanted to touch on the band pegs we have installed on the weight stacks. These are to give you guys a dynamic load option. So if you're familiar with like lifting chains, where they add chains on the side of the barbell, that's to increase the load at the top of the movement where everybody is the strongest. Like at the end of a bench press, that's when the chains will be off the floor and it's going to be a heavier load. Then as you go down, chains go on the floor, lighter load where you're weaker. So it's to strengthen the top end of the movement where you're the strongest. And it's like that for most exercises. So like a tricep press down, you'll be the strongest at the bottom, and that's where a band can add more load. And then you'll be a little bit weaker at the top where the band would do less load. So it's a dynamic range. You need to do a band on both sides of the weight stack just so it evenly goes up and down the guide rods and it's not torquing. So This is a 1/2 inch band. You're gonna want like a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch at most, because it'll add too much load because they're stretching too far. So I have a 1/2 inch on both sides, and this is what a press down would look like. So it's a little bit easier, and then it gets harder right here at the bottom. And you can do a really good burnout with these. You can also use them for sports performance movements, where you do pretty light on the weight stack and you're using the band for like core rotations or swings, and then that's gonna add load towards the end of it where you're a little bit stronger. So dynamic load, it's cool. You guys can mess around with it and add it into your training, but recommendations would be 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch band. Okay, so for the pull-up bar, it's going to be pick your preference. We always really like to do this 5 different grip, multiple grip pull-up bar, which gives you like hammer curl, inside, outside, wide grip, neutral, and then your traditional with a bent angle. But every once in a while, we do get some clients that prefer just a traditional straight bar. So we are including it with this one. So you guys can pick what you prefer to put on. The straight bar would mount right here. And if you have the straight bar on, it's going to make it pretty challenging to use the multiple grip bar too, but I'm sure you can do a little bit. So it's going to come with both pull-up bars, and you can pick which one you put on. Okay, so here's your breakdown for the functional training arms. For the adjustable trolleys themselves, we went with the 4 roller system, which is the smoothest adjustment style to go up and down the uprights. A lot of the times you'll see like a plastic coupling or insert, and these arms are heavier, so that doesn't balance it as well as a roller does. So with the rollers, it helps it to stay a lot more balanced and makes the adjustments a little bit easier. For the arms themselves, they're going to be 3D, so they move in all directions. This is your inside, outside. And these will go completely parallel with the rack. So this is the widest point there. And then this is your up and down. And that's going to be your widest point on that position. So if you put both arms in this position, it's going to give you an 81-inch reach. So from cable to cable, and that would be like your widest fly or something like that. And then for the cable ratios, they're going to be 2 to 1, and that's really what you would want for an accessory, movements, which is what a functional trainer is for. So for like, chest, shoulders, arms, it's going to be a lot smoother. It's going to allow you to go in, smaller increments on the weight stack instead of jumping by 10 pounds. For, shoulders, you're going to be able to go up by 5-pound increments. Even in the gyms on functional trainers, you're going to see 2 to 1 or 3 to 1 everywhere. So it's not a place where you would want a 1 to 1. And then for heavier stuff like a lat pull down or a row, we have the dedicated 1-to-1 pulley for the low rows. And then you can put these together and set up for a heavy 1-to-1 lat pull down as well, which I'm going to show you separately when I set up the lat pull down, because we give you everything you need for a lat pull down station to hold you down, and it's a really good setup. So I'm going to set that up separately. All right, so here's how you set up for the lat pull down, and just using everything the machine comes with set up in this configuration, that's going to give you a 200-pound capacity lat pull down, and that's 200 pounds of effective weight in your hands. So to set up for it, you're going to use the emblem that it comes with. This is going to attach both pulleys into one, and then you're going to come down into the lat pull down bar, which it also comes with. And then you're going to use the accessory crossbar we give you. And this is really cool. We're going to make some more attachments that can work with this, but you get the accessory crossbar. And then we also include this lat pull down hold down. And this is micro adjustable, so you can kind of put this around where you think you need it and then use this to dial it in. So I'll show you what that looks like. For me, that's about where I want it. And then here's going to be your lat pull down. And this is very smooth. There's a lot of room up there, so if you're taller, you're going to be able to get a full stretch. And then if you guys need more weight, you can use the HD adder pins that we have on the website. And if you use those, you can get up to a 400-pound lat pull down in this configuration. Okay, so now I want to give my honest feedback on this rack and who I think it makes the most sense for. First of all, I think everybody should look at and consider HD1, watch that video, because I think that's the absolute best value on the market right now in terms of getting great specs, great features at a great price. That machine does everything really, really well. The biggest difference for me is the HD1 is going to handle compound lifts better and faster. So the lat pull down's already set up, it's already heavy, it's already perfect. You don't need to do a lot of setup to get into it, it's already there. And then the row is going to have a little bit more adjustability. So heavy rows and lat pull downs, it's a no-brainer on HD1. It's just very, very simple. It can still be done here, but there's a lot more to it. You have to do more setup for it, and it's not going to be as perfect, but it's still great. And then HD1 just has a simple trolley that goes up and down. There's not as much adjustability, so it's just everything is quick and easy and works really well. It's kind of a pro and a con. You have so much adjustability here. you know, can be good for some things, but it just makes setup, you know, kind of longer. Doesn't work perfect for everything. You can't really have a cable right here under the pull-up bar, so you can't do assisted pull-ups on these. Assisted pull-ups are already on HD1. They work perfect. So there is some pros and cons. Who I think this rack makes the most sense for is anybody who can't live without functional training arms, because I know there's a ton of you, because we get tons of questions about that on HD1. This is kind of a buzzword in the industry right now where people are putting it on everything, but at the same time, there's pros and cons, and I think that, you know, you should have both options and just pick the right use case. This is going to be better if you're going to if you want to get really creative with a wide functional trainer and you want a really good squat rack bench press, you're going to love this. It's a great setup. But if you want something quick and easy and you're lifting heavy, at the HD1 I think is a no-brainer. And I'm not really trying to make this an HD1 video, but you know, this is why we wanted to have two options instead of just doing everything with functional training arms. So now you guys can compare them both and see which one makes the most sense for your use case. Okay, so I saved this part for the end of the video because I don't want to bore anyone, but we had a ton of requests on HD1 video to show bench press and flies and a couple things. So I know people are wanting to see that kind of stuff, so I'm going to quickly show you guys bench press and a couple things, and you could just turn off the video right now if you just wanted all the information. All that stuff is done. So here's a bench press, and I set up the safety spotters to be right at the bottom of my bench. So that's kind of how you wanted to do it. You want it to be literally right above your chest, so if you can't make it up, that's what you're going to rest on. So here's your bench press. You can get a nice rep, but if you can't make it up, it's literally right at the bottom, and that's what the safety bars are designed for. So that's your bench press. And if you're going to do a squat, you'd obviously pull the bench out and just raise these a little bit higher. And you can do the same thing with the safety bars on your squat. You can just put them towards the bottom, and that way if you can't make it back up, you can just rest them on the spotters and walk out. So now I'll move all this out of the way and I'll show a couple variations of flies. Okay, so here's a couple variations of cable flies. This is just by request because we get a ton of questions about it. This is going to be a decline fly. And then this is a really cool one that I think everybody should incorporate. Let's see, 14. And then you pull in a bench. So you can set up kind of like a machine fly and stabilize. So these need to go down a little bit more. Is that 11? Yeah, that's better. You kind of want this to be, the cable to be in line with the shoulder, so you don't want it to be too high unless you're going for a decline. So that's a really good fly, kind of like a machine you would use in the gym. And then if you wanted to do an incline fly, you put these all the way at the bottom, or close, something like that. 3 and 3. Okay, so now we're going to do upper chest, and this is going to go towards the top.